Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. We got another one for you on Resilient Overcomer. And I have Colleen here with me today, who's a trauma coach, and we're going to dive into the subject from a different point of view that maybe you haven't thought of before. Colleen, thank you for being here. Please tell us more about you.
Tiffany, thank you so much for having me. I am a mother. I am a woman in recovery from many things: addiction, alcoholism, shopping, codependency. I had this deep void that I used so much to fill for much of my life. And I really wouldn't be who I am today without my son. I didn't love myself before I had my son, and I was very self-sabotaging in every way. And I looked at my son one day and just said to myself, like, this little boy didn't ask to be brought into this world. I brought him into this world, and I need to do a better job. And so I got help for all of the things I was struggling with in life, and I'm here today.
I can relate so much with my own story and my son. He really changed my life. And I did have other kids, but the extreme circumstances we were under really made me show up as a parent, because I'm it in his world. And I hadn't experienced that before to that level. And it's amazing just becoming a mother, how it changes us. Like, it gives us a different perspective, because it's not just about us anymore, but it also becomes kind of the superpower. And you get that phrase of like mama bear, like kicks on, and you're like, you will fight for that child in ways that you never knew you could before. And so it sounds like you've overcome many different things. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So understanding the subconscious mind has changed my life completely. I really, for so long in my life, I thought there was something wrong with me. I had a good life and I couldn't appreciate it, and in reality, the trauma that I experienced in my life up until COVID times wasn't really that big. It was more my perception of life. And that's really important to understand if you're ever stuck in any kind of patterns of self-sabotage. You tell yourself you're not going to eat something at night, and you're eating at night, you're drinking wine at night, you're shopping online, you're scrolling on your phone, and you're in all these patterns. It's this perception of what happened to you is having you look for something else outside of you to be safe. You're looking to self-soothe your nervous system through all these different toxic patterns that none of them are that big of a deal, but they add up to holding you back from your potential in life, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been divorced for almost 5 years now. My son is a little over 9. He turned 9 in May, at the end of May. And when I first got pregnant with my son, I knew that drinking was an issue in my life, and my marriage was not doing well at all with his dad. We were in couples therapy. We've been married for about 3 years that time. And in my mind at the time, this is really funny to hear, Tiffany. I thought that if I had a child with this man, and we were together on it, it was a joint thing. It would save our marriage, and I would be able to stop drinking. And I was able to stop drinking. I stopped drinking my entire pregnancy, and I believe for about a year after the fact. But I was outsourcing self-worth. I still didn't love myself, and I was forcing it. And I got divorced and got in an incredibly abusive relationship. I was the biggest victim of life. I just wanted to blame everything on everyone around me. Nothing was fair. Nothing was my fault. I just pointed the finger all day. And at the end of the day, I got the help that I needed. I went to rehab January 6th. Gosh, that was 2022, I believe. It'll be three years this coming January. And at the end of the day, I have to live every day the rest of my life knowing that, leaving my son to get treatment for help was the hardest thing that I've ever done. But deep forgiveness, deep acceptance, deep looking within. Why did I make the choices I was making in life? Why did I have a good life and have to finish a bottle of wine every night to be able to self-soothe and go to bed? And it's all about acceptance. Again, like I said, acceptance, forgiveness, and moving forward and showing up every day as the mom that my son deserves.
What was the turning point or the rock bottom moment? What were the thoughts around that time that gave you the courage and the strength to decide to overcome these things?
Gosh, it was bad for me at one point. 3 years ago, I was waking up every day. I was stuck in this toxic pattern with this man that I could not get out of my life. I did in the end, but I was in a relationship. I had called the cops. I want to say over a 2 year span, I had called the cops 12 times, got my locks changed 5 times, got a restraining order, and this man still controlled everything in my life. I really, really tried to escape this man, and I was waking up every day physically shaking from withdrawal because I was drinking to numb myself. I didn't know how my life went from being with my son's dad, and he was a good guy. We just weren't meant for each other, to then picking this man. And I looked at my son and my heart just broke. And God, my higher power came into my subconscious mind and literally said what I said earlier was, this boy did not ask to be brought into this world. You brought him into this world. You have to do better. And at the time, no one in my life knew that I was drinking. I was sober, then I wasn't, then I was sober, then I wasn't. I struggled to get sober for about 7 years. He was 6 when I sought treatment for addiction. And so I was pregnant for about a year before he was born. So it was 7 years that I was struggling on and off. And I tell my son all the time, my son's only 9, like I said, and so he doesn't really understand, but I tell him, like, you saved my life. And he'll understand one day. And it was the most heartbreaking decision as a mom to take time off, to realize that my mental health, my patterns were not okay. And to leave my son was the most painful thing I've ever done in my entire life. But I've gotten to come back and rebuild my relationship with him and actually get certified in everything that I went through, the subconscious mind, understanding, why we're stuck in these patterns, understanding how to somatically heal our nervous system, understanding why we have a good life and we can't appreciate it, why you have everything you want and you're reaching for that bottle of wine at the end of the night. It's not about the wine. It's about your nervous system, your subconscious mind, everything, your perception of the world. And so I've been able to turn it around, rebuild my relationship with my son, and build a successful business where I get to help most all of my clients are moms just take care of themselves first.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage today. I think we're a little bit better about saying, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I am not okay right now. And I need some help, or I need a break, or I need this, without the mom guilt, because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So Amen. Mama needs to figure out how to be happy. And it's not through the kids. It's not through the marriage. It's not through other things. Like, we each get to choose happiness each day. I love this image that's a meme out there of someone holding this jar of just glistening light. And someone's like, where did you get that? How can I get it? And they're like, I created it. And that's the real truth of it. We're creating our lives. And when we've had abuse, when we've had trauma and our voice has been taken from us, or our self-trust, or we have some need that's not being met, that's where addiction comes in. Some people are able to deal with it and maybe be addicted to something kind of good, so it doesn't look on the outside like an addiction. It could be exercise. It could be being super healthy. It could be something. But there are these patterns of an addict that are very repetitive, that are like, you just can't fill that void. And it can also be a negative thing. So something I think that's really important to note with addictions is you can't just tell somebody to stop.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of stopping. There is some need that is not being met. There's some issue that is not resolved somewhere in the body, somewhere in the mind. There's something that needs to be addressed. And it's just our body and our mind screaming at us, our soul screaming at us that you need to take care of this. And whether we take the time to find that one way or another, it's going to come out. And if we're lucky, we recognize it sooner. If we don't, we're going to hit rock bottom, or we're going to have some event in our life that's really going to make us aware of the change that needs to happen. And sometimes it's being mom. Sometimes it's becoming mom. Sometimes it's that child who literally saves you. My first child, I don't talk about this too often. I was married in my early 20s to a man 12 years older than me who was a psychology major, and he just manipulated me. I didn't know. I was very, very naive going out into the world in my 20s. I was not prepared for life in a lot of ways. And we had a child together. And then I tried to live with my family, but it was not a good situation. So I ended up putting her up for adoption when she was 9 months old behind my family's back because I felt like it was the best thing for her. And that was the hardest thing I have ever done without support, just me and God on that. But it let me get my life back. In a lot of ways, I felt like you saved me from a very abusive relationship I would have never left until you came into the picture because you deserved better. And then you also got me away from my family and realized I need to go make my own path. And so I feel exactly the same way as you do about, you saved me, you saved my life, you gave me back mine, I'm going to give you back yours, was my thought at the time. And I'd love to say it had the happily ever after ending. It did not. There's been a lot of other things. And it's interesting that addictions, mental illness, patterns, dysfunction, generational curses, if they're not broken, continue on, no matter what your best efforts are. And if you don't resolve it, the next generation's going to have to resolve it. If you're not willing to face and deal with your stuff, they're going to have to face it for you. It's something that I don't think people take into account, because what you do to your body affects the next 3 generations. It's not just your body. It does affect your kids, your habits, your patterns, the things that you're doing. And I really see that when I do get back with my older child, because we haven't been in vicinity, like in the same vicinity for years, but our likes, our body language, the things we say, that it's obvious that we are genetically bound to each other. And so I think it's an important thing to discuss as well that way. And I love your vulnerability and your ability to share. So with all of that in your story, I'm so curious how you would define resilience.
Resilience is showing up, and every day you show up. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. You have to get up. You have to keep pushing forward. You have to put one foot in front of the other. It's not how many times you fall off the bike. It's how many times you get back up. It's not giving up. It's not an option to me. And so now, my mission, I share very vulnerably, very openly on my podcast, on my social media platforms, just about life. And I'm still deeply healing from the relationship I was in that ended a couple years ago. But my nervous system still gets very dysregulated around men, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. Right now, I'm fulfilled with my business, with my son, and I have like 2 hours free a week. I don't have time to date if I wanted to.
Right.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that. But it's about just it's not about me. See, we have to understand our brains, our subconscious minds, and we will give up on ourselves. I'm not giving up on my son. So for me, the reason that, I work 7 days a week, I'm always out there, I'm sharing my story. My son hears me. It's like you just said, even if you're apart, you still have that. My son will repeat little sayings. He got a phone recently, and he'll send me little reels or YouTube shorts about like God and like the power of your mind and all this stuff. And it's all I can do is move forward. We can't stay stuck in the shame and the guilt of our mistakes. Just because you're a mom doesn't mean you have to be anything but who you are. But it's really important to look in the mirror and find a way to heal, because what we were talking about before we started too, the way our subconscious mind works is, when any kind of trauma that you went through as a kid, that's going to be anything that's unresolved is going to come up when your kid hits that stage. So my son's 9. Anything that I went through at 9 that's in my subconscious mind as a belief is going to be brought up for me. And so my reaction to anything that is done to him or he does is going to be driven by that. Our subconscious minds are 5 times stronger and 5 times faster than our minds, than our conscious minds. And so we have to learn how to feel our emotions, see where our nervous system is. And then for me, everything I do is for my son, but for my son, so I can show up as the sober mom that he deserves. The most important thing for me is my nervous system to be in a regulated state. Because if I'm not regulated, I am not acting as the mom he deserves. I am quick to jump into things. I'm raising my voice, all that stuff. So that's a big thing that I teach my clients, in recovery or not. Most of my clients aren't in recovery. You don't have to hear my story and let your rock bottom get to going to treatment for addiction and in a crazy relationship like mine was. You don't have to have that dramatic of a down to understand what the assignment is. The assignment is to stop putting everyone over ourselves and to put ourselves first so you can show up for your kids.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I love the saying that you got to put your oxygen mask on first.
Big time.
If you're not breathing, how can you teach them to breathe? If you're not thriving, how do they know how to thrive? If you're not living in abundance, how do they know how? You can't do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work at all.
Oh, no, it does not work at all. No. And it's really important too, to train your subconscious mind to only compare yourself to who you were a day ago.
Yeah. I like that. What is one of the ways that you do that?
I just catch myself and I release it. I catch and release it. And I observe my thoughts. I observe my thought patterns. I still do. I spend a lot of time by myself. I spend about an hour a day by myself, be it doing like yoga, doing a meditation, doing some written journaling, just getting really calm so that if I'm thrown off by anything, I'm able to be like, whoa, this is not the baseline. You know what I mean? This is not where we need to be. Let's regulate and then let's move forward. A golden rule in my life that all of my clients take on is we do not respond when our nervous system's not in a regulated state. But if you don't know what your regulated state is, you can't use that.
Oh, absolutely. So do you schedule that? And did you find what worked for you right away, or did you have to experiment with what helps you to be regulated?
I change it up. I try and start my day with a written list of things, my self-concept work, a gratitude list. Gratitude lists are, everyone in the world should do a gratitude list. I don't care where you are, what you're doing, everything. Your brain literally can't process anxiety and stress and positivity at the same time. It's processed in the same part, and so if we start our day and we set the tone with like, I'm grateful for my son because he's the biggest lesson I've ever had. He teaches me more than anyone else in the world ever has. I'm grateful for my dog for the unconditional love that she's always there giving me, and then I do yoga. I move. I'm very big on, the nervous system regulation. And if you understand your nervous system, anxiety doesn't live in your mind. It lives in your nervous system. It lives in the body. And so we need to, any kind of anxious patterns, any kind of stress, worry, fear, it's your mind's anticipation of something going wrong because your body's attached to emotions from the past. And so for me, movement of some kind, be it a walk in nature, walk outside, going to a yoga class, just putting my mat out and stretching is essential for me to move the energy through.
Yeah. And that might look different for everyone. So that's why I asked, because I know for me, it's music. For other people, it's getting outside. And so it's just different. There are some things that are the same, like the breath, that is grossly underestimated for regulation. Meditation, some people are like, I don't know about that. And I will admit, the first couple of times I did it, I'm like, I don't know if this is working. But some of it is experimenting. You got to figure out what works for you. And some things are going to be quick hits to get you back calm. And some other things are just going to take time to integrate, especially if you've had a frazzled nervous system. And especially as a child. I was born into my family, and 6 months later, my dad's only sister was murdered. And I'm just starting to put the connection of why I felt unsafe in the world because of that. Why that's a thought that I have to deal with. It goes all the way back to when I was 6 months old. I mean, how ingrained is that? And it's taken me years to figure that out. But now that I know, now that I'm aware, I can do something. But when you're not aware and you don't do the work and you don't dig and dig and dig, there's no way to heal that little girl that's inside of us that thought she would meet a Prince Charming and live happily ever after. And she's throwing a fit because she's single and she's raising kids on her own. And this was not what was promised if you followed the given path. Well,
Yeah,
there's not really a given path anymore, is there? Like,
and that's the acceptance piece that's so important, that so many of us, like the subconscious mind, again, when you understand your brain and the brain patterns, that's when you are able to master it, right? Your subconscious mind, the beliefs in it are established by the time you're like 6, 9 at the very latest. Every child from 0 until 9 thinks that everything is happening because of them. So, mom comes home from work, dad comes home from work, they're in a bad mood. They're not able to be like, you know what? My dad's job's really stressful. My mom's job's really stressful. They just had a bad day. It isn't me. Your child literally on a subconscious level is like, it's me. It's how I look. It's what I said. If I was different, my mom would be in a good mood. And then we go around with these beliefs that it's the law of attraction. We're magnetizing that to us, where I'm the issue. So-and-so isn't happy because of me. I'm not enough. There's something wrong with me. And I'm really big on for nervous system regulation and all like the somatic practices, the music, the movement, breathing, everything. I'm big on doing something for a couple weeks and then I'll shift it to something else, because your nervous system is very adaptable. And your nervous system, your stress levels want to stay in this elevated state. And it's really important that we understand what works for us, understand when we're adapting to these little tools and we're not getting the same results we did. All right, I have to shift it. I'm going to shift the music. I'm going to shift the movement, whatever the case is.
Yeah. And I think that's even true with exercise. Like, you're supposed to mix it up and kind of shake it up for the muscles to grow and to be stronger. And I think that's resilience. That's life throwing something we did not expect at us to show us what we're made of and to show us what we're capable of. And motherhood has definitely stretched me in ways I never, ever imagined I would be stretched. But it's also given me a huge heart and a ton of empathy and compassion that I wouldn't have found any other way. And this drive to do things like this, like the podcast, to support moms and to understand more about child development and the choices that I'm making, not just for myself, but how that affects my children and other children that I am also around and have influence over. And that gives you the strength to connect back to that why of, why do I need to be regulated? Why do I need to do these things? Why do I need to be that example? Whereas otherwise, what is the motivation? Was it something external? Was it to have a certain balance in the bank account? Was it to be cute on Instagram? Like, those are all things that are temporary and don't really have the fulfillment that having deep, meaningful relationships with your family, with your kids, and with yourself.
Yeah, it all starts with you.
That relationship with yourself, you're going to live with you for the rest of your life. That's the most important relationship that you have. And when you get honest with yourself and you stop fighting yourself and your truth, that's when things start to flow. And then you attract the things that you need to. Then you understand what vibration you should be on. But until then, if something feels off, and maybe you're not okay, it's okay to admit you're not okay, but maybe something just feels a little off. Like, this isn't exactly what I want. I don't feel centered. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel aligned with myself. It's okay to take the time to figure it out and just get curious about it. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you're not showing up. Just go, oh, I lost my temper there. I haven't regulated. Like, once you understand what you're talking about, you can pull yourself out of it and understand that you have biological responses that are just part of our innate nature and how our brain tries to protect us. And then there's the meaning you put on it.
Yeah.
So beat yourself up with putting meaning on things that are your body's natural response. You're tired. You're tired. You're worn out. You're worn out. You can give your all until you're too depleted, and then you're not going to show up the way that you want to. So that's what we're talking about. And that can come from addiction. That can come from being too tired. That can be being in the wrong relationship, at the wrong job. There's so many things that you could look at and go, is that really the right thing for me or not? And is that the right thing for my kid or not? They're off. Something's off with them. And that motherly intuition is that. It's that voice talking to you. It's not the big, how am I going to raise the next president of the United States? No, it's that little thing. My kid's off today. What is my gut telling me? How can I help them? You're their mother. Trust that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really helps too to understand how belief systems are formed in the subconscious mind. And so as a single mom that has her own business, I work a lot around my son. It is what it is, you know.
Mhm.
And sometimes he'll complain. I try and schedule. I very much give him notice in advance. Mommy has this one call. I'll be done in a half hour. Get him set up. But if he ever says like, "You work a lot, Mom," I explain to him that I do this for you, bud. Like I do this for you. I'm doing this to support you, bud. I'm doing this for you. And then with the beliefs, I'll repeat the same thing to him. I'll say to him when I try to praise him more when he is just not doing anything than when he's doing something right. I'm like,
Mm.
you are the best. I love you so much. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. When he's just laying on the couch doing nothing, he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And I'll repeat the same couple little phrases to him so that when he associates that with his mom and it becomes a belief in his subconscious mind.
Yeah, I do that with my son with a nightly routine with his bedtime, because when I discovered his dad was really not going to be in his life at all, which was kind of a shock to me that men can do that, that I was going to be the only parent. And I found comfort in that if one parent always shows up, the kid can be okay as long as they have one stable parent. And that gave me some hope. But with that, I also thought, okay, what can I do? What can I do to enforce that this child does not feel abandoned, discarded, set aside, not valued, not loved? How can I do that? So I turn to affirmations. So at night, as part of his bedtime routine, I say, "You are special, you are loved, you're mommy's miracle, and I love you." And what's beautiful now is all I have to say is "you are," and he finishes the whole phrase. But not only that, sometimes he turns it around on me and he says, "Okay, your turn, mom. You are." And it's just the most beautiful thing because it's completely ingrained in him. And especially as he was starting to become aware of what a family unit was, I would watch what kind of shows, what kind of books he was reading, different things to see. You can kind of read your kids that way. And he really gravitated towards the movie Encanto, where there was a strong female figure
Oh, I love
running the household. And it gave him a lot of comfort. And it also fits what I was saying to him, which is that we are miracles in our own family. And somehow that's beautifully helped him to have this kind of, I don't have a dad. It's okay. Do you have a mom and dad? I just have a mom. It's all right. Like, and someone else had to tell me that he said that, because I've always been kind of wondering if it worked, if it was working, if it was doing what my heart intended it to do. And it's this simple thing. It's not this big thing. I didn't take him to a big trip in Disneyland, although I did do that with my kids too. But like, it wasn't the big thing. It was this little daily habit that I did
Yeah.
with him to get it into the subconscious on a regular basis from the time he was at my breast, over and over and over and over again. So that can be the strongest thread to take him through his life. And it's just been amazing to me because other things have popped up from being in the personal development realm with him a lot and being on Zooms and conversations like this is I'll be doing something and he'll just be like, try again, just try again. Cause that's what I tell him, you know, and it's so beautiful to see what the fruits of your labor can be when you're intentional with what you're doing. And I really want to emphasize that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are, married, single, divorced, whatever, birth mom, adoptive mom, surrogate mom, whatever mom you are welcome here. And I want you to understand you get to decide what your motherhood is. It is a sacred calling, whatever that looks like for you. And maybe it's not what you expected. Maybe it is. Often it's some form of surprise somewhere in
I don't
there.
know many women that motherhood is what they expected. It's
Well, I
the
think
best.
it's different.
But
Like, yeah, no, the kids don't come with a manual. There's no manual on motherhood. We got a lot of ideas and generational advice, but every kid's different. They're like a surprise box of tricks, and for lack of a better way of putting it. And so nothing's going to fully prepare you for it. And there's never a perfect time for it. But it's this beautiful process of refining you and helping you understand, at least for me, what love really is and what it really looks like.
unconditional love. And it really is beautiful too. Our kids chose who their mom and dad were. Before they're brought into this world, my son chose me. My son knew who I am, chose me, and none of us are victims. None of us. And, you know, if you are a mother dealing with any kind of addiction recovery, substance abuse recovery, it's very interesting. Tony Robbins, one of the most well-respected men in the entire world. His mom was an active addiction when he was a kid. He didn't have food on the table most nights. And look at him now.
Mhm.
We all know that story, the tale, whatever it is, that an older man was an alcoholic and he had 2 kids raised the same. One of them went on and became a doctor. One of them went on and became an alcoholic. The doctor was like, look at my dad. The alcoholic's like, look at my dad. So it's not what happens to you in life. It's the beliefs and your perception of what happens to you. It's all about acceptance. And then how are you going to move forward?
Absolutely.
Action is the key to anything you're going through. How are we going to move? Get up and move. Resiliency.
And it's a choice. It's a choice every day. The good and the bad are both there, as Tony would say, and you get to pick. It's there. They're both available. And as you pointed out, the mind can't focus on both at the same time.
Yeah.
It cannot be in 2 polar opposite places at the same time. And the sooner you can ingrain that into your kids, the more powerful they are, because then they know what that truth is for them and they have the power of that choice. And that's what I'm hoping here is to build resilient mothers, to build the next resilient generation, and to give those tools.
Yeah. And it's so funny. So many, it's not what happens to you, it's your perception. And so all you can do as a mom is let go of control. And just know that if you're doing the best you can, that's okay. And your kid chose you. You know, you don't have perfection is not a thing. There's no perfect mom.
No. So let it all go. And just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Don't be so caught up in it you can't enjoy it.
Yes.
Enjoy it so they can enjoy it with you. And you can create those special moments and build that love. All right. Any last thoughts as we wrap up here?
I mean, the best thing you can do is continue to see anything that upsets you about your child as, what about me as a child is this bringing up, asking to be released? If someone treats your child in a certain way, if your child does something that you don't like, it's all a trigger to you because you have some deeper things going on around that topic that have nothing to do.
We're in charge of our triggers. We don't get to.
Yes, no one makes us feel anything. Your kid doesn't make you feel anything. Your kid does them. You feel that. We own everything we feel. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Sure. I'm at TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. My first name and my last name.
Perfect. Well, thank you, audience, for being here. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Please let us know in the comments or somewhere here. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Resilient Mother podcast.
Thank you so much.